Usually when we talk about a financial crisis or, a period of intense global panic, there's this very specific visceral image that comes to mind for you.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, you probably imagine a massive cargo ship caught in a Category 5 hurricane. The stock market is plunging, the ticker tape on the news is just flashing red.
Right, and investors are frantically throwing cargo overboard just trying to keep the ship afloat.
Exactly. It feels chaotic, completely reactive,
Yeah.
and like the entire global economy is just at the absolute mercy of the elements.
And that panic is contagious, you know? When credit markets freeze and equities plummet, the natural human instinct is to just liquidate everything.
Yeah, a scramble for lifeboats.
Precisely. It feels like there is zero control over the outcome.
But then you look closely at certain specific sectors of the global economy, and suddenly it's not a ship tossing in the waves at all. It's a massive reinforced concrete bunker.
A bunker. I like that.
Right. The storm is raging outside, the geopolitical headlines are terrifying, but inside, it's completely quiet. The wealth isn't sinking, it's just parked there, totally secure.
And understanding how that bunker is built, who gets to hide inside it and what materials were used to construct it, that completely changes how you see the entire architecture of global wealth.
It really does.
We are looking at the mechanics of a true financial shock absorber today.
We really are. And we have a highly illuminating piece of source material to guide us through this deep dive. It's an article from March 14th, 2026.
Published by Jamaica Homes News, right?
Yes, exactly. It's titled, Why Global Wealth is Still Flowing into Property and What Jamaica Should Notice. And our mission here is to unpack the fascinating psychology and really the hard economics behind where global wealth actually hides when the world gets volatile.
Because, if you look at the headlines dominating the news cycle for you right now, it is just wall-to-wall geopolitical tension.
Oh yeah. Conflict, economic uncertainty, all of it.
Right. But underneath all that noise, there is a massive, quiet migration of capital happening.
Just moving in the shadows, almost.
Exactly. Because historically, when financial markets get rocky, investors realize that numbers on a screen can simply vanish in a millisecond.
Yeah, a stock portfolio could just be wiped out by an algorithm.
So capital actively seeks tangible physical assets.
Huh.
We aren't just talking about a real estate trend today. We are using property as a lens to see how capital actively hunts for safe harbors.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because to truly understand how a real estate market absorbs global panic, the article uses Dubai as a masterclass case study.
A perfect example,
I
yeah.
want you to think of prime real estate in Dubai, not as a collection of luxury buildings, but as a giant physical savings account.
A savings account made of concrete.
Exactly. A savings account that simply does not panic when the stock market decides to have a meltdown.
Well, Dubai's track record of resilience is honestly staggering when you map it against the turbulence of recent history. The source explicitly examines three massive historical shocks that the Dubai property market navigated over the past 2 decades.
Okay, what's the first one?
First, you have the 2008 global financial crash.
Right, which was devastating globally.
Absolutely. Then you have the intense periods of oil market volatility.
Also huge for that region.
And finally, the unprecedented economic deep freeze of the COVID-19 pandemic.
Any single one of those events is enough to capsize a normal market for a decade. We literally saw the 2008 crash leave ghost towns of unfinished developments all over the world,
Oh, everywhere.
taking years, sometimes a full decade, just to claw back to baseline.
But the mechanism of resilience in Dubai functioned totally differently. After each of those severe downturns, the recovery phases didn't just bring the market back to parity.
Wait, they didn't just break even.
No, they pushed property values and transaction volumes well beyond their previous peaks. The total value of property sales has increased dramatically since the pandemic period. And the source notes this is happening right now, in real time.
Despite everything going on in the world.
Yes. Transaction volumes are rising sharply, prices are climbing, buyer inquiries are just flooding in, completely defying the gravity of regional geopolitical headlines.
That's wild.
And it's happening alongside a massive surge in population growth there.
But surely real estate is tied to the broader economy. Economics isn't magic. It doesn't exist in a vacuum. If the global stock market tanks and credit freezes up, if the world is stressed, How do these massive luxury villas stay immune?
Well, that gets right to the underlying mechanics of this whole phenomenon. The resilience isn't just about the physical concrete or, the curb appeal.
Right.
It's about how those buildings are bought, the psychology of the people buying them, and the invisible rules governing the entire process.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because if we look at who is actually surviving this storm, it's a very specific type of buyer.
Very specific.
The article hones in on the ultra-prime segment. We're talking about highly exclusive properties valued at tens of millions of dollars.
Very top tier.
Yeah. And the absolute game changer here is that these transactions are largely done entirely without mortgage financing.
No banks involved.
Right. We are talking about pure cash buyers. Cash is essentially the rebar inside our concrete bunker.
What's fascinating here is the underlying psychology of those cash buyers. A high net worth individual isn't necessarily buying a $30 million villa because they need another place to sleep.
Right. They already have 5 houses.
Exactly. They are using cash as a wealth allocation strategy. When you remove leveraged borrowing, when you remove the bank and the monthly mortgage payment from the equation, you completely alter the physics of the market.
Because debt is the actual engine of panic.
It is.
Let's break down how that usually works for a normal investor. If I have a massive mortgage on an investment property and global interest rates suddenly spike, my monthly payments might literally double.
Overnight, yeah.
Or if my other investments in the stock market tank, I might get a margin call. I am suddenly forced to sell that property, not because I want to, but because I desperately need the liquidity to cover my debts.
And if thousands of highly leveraged investors face that exact same pressure simultaneously, the market just gets flooded with distressed property.
Supply skyrockets.
Demand evaporates and prices collapse.
Yep.
That is your traditional real estate crash.
Right.
But if you bought that property outright in cash, you have no monthly payment. You have no bank breathing down your neck. When the financial weather gets rough, you don't panic sell.
You don't have to.
Exactly. The market is effectively shielded from sudden forced liquidations. You just sit inside your concrete bunker and wait out the storm.
That makes perfect sense. The absence of debt totally severs the link between stock market panic and real estate collapse.
Totally.
And the source points out that this cash isn't just pouring in from one specific region, which adds another really thick layer of armor. It's incredibly diverse.
Oh, hugely diverse.
You have buyers from Asia, Eastern Europe, Africa, and the Middle East, all actively participating in this ultra-prime market.
And by spreading the demand across multiple distinct geographic investor groups, the market builds a diversified portfolio of buyers. Think about how crucial that is.
Because if one region falters.
Exactly. If an economic crisis hits Eastern Europe, buyers from that region might pull back. But because the market isn't entirely reliant on them, buyers from Asia or Africa, who might be experiencing completely different economic conditions, are still injecting capital.
It stabilizes the entire ecosystem.
Yes. The sheer geographic diversity acts as a counterweight to regional volatility.
But we do have to be clear here, because this armor we are talking about, this immunity to global panic, is absolutely not distributed equally.
No, it is not.
The source draws a very sharp, sobering contrast when it comes to who actually gets to hide in the bunker.
Yeah, the resilience we are seeing is fundamentally uneven. While the luxury and ultra-prime developments remain entirely stable because of that cash and long-term investment horizons, mid-market housing is highly vulnerable to economic shifts.
Because mid-market buyers are everyday people. They are the ones actually tethered to the broader economy.
Right.
They don't have $30 million in liquid cash to park in a villa. They absolutely rely on mortgage financing to buy a home.
And because they rely on mortgages, their ability to buy or even just keep a home is dictated by the broader economic reality. They are highly sensitive to shifts in interest rates.
So if a central bank raises rates to fight inflation,
A middle-class buyer's purchasing power plummets overnight. They are vulnerable to changes in employment conditions and overall consumer confidence.
yeah, that makes sense.
I mean, a billionaire shifting assets from tech stocks to a luxury villa isn't worried about losing their job. A mid-market buyer absolutely is.
So you end up with this bifurcated global property market. The luxury sector floats above the turbulence on a cushion of cash, while the mid-market absorbs the direct, brutal blows of economic sentiment.
It's two completely different realities.
So we have diverse global cash acting as the rebar of the bunker. But cash alone isn't the whole story of why Dubai works as a safe harbor. Right.
No, there's another crucial element.
The article talks about something that is, frankly, totally unsexy. It rarely makes the front page of an architectural digest,
Mhm.
but it is absolutely vital to making this whole thing function. Bureaucracy.
Dubai's institutional advantage. This is the real unsung hero of their real estate resilience.
Tell me more about that.
Over the last decade, they didn't just pour concrete and build shiny towers. They meticulously built rigorous rules. They heavily strengthened the oversight of developer licensing.
Okay.
They mandated strict escrow accounts, and they enforced rigorous project delivery standards.
Well, let's do a quick explainer on escrow accounts for you listening, because it
Mhm.
sounds like dry financial jargon, but it's actually the heavy steel door of our bumper.
It really is.
Historically, in a lot of fast-growing markets, a developer could pre-sell a bunch of apartments that didn't even exist yet. They'd take the buyer's cash and then use it to fund a completely different project.
Which is a massive house of cards.
Exactly. If one project fails, the whole thing comes tumbling down and the buyers lose everything.
But a strict escrow mandate changes that entirely. An escrow account is essentially a neutral financial holding cell. When an investor buys an off-plan property, their money goes into this highly regulated, locked account.
So the developer can't just take it.
No, the developer cannot touch those funds until they hit specific, verifiable construction milestones. They can't take your millions and run off, and they can't use it to plug holes in other failing projects.
That's brilliant.
The money just sits there until the concrete is actually poured.
I think there's a fascinating irony here.
Mm.
We always picture massive, ultra-high net worth global wealth as this wild, untamed, cowboy-like force looking for the Wild West.
Right, looking for loopholes.
Exactly. But in reality, it craves rules. It desperately wants a boring, predictable, highly regulated framework to park itself in.
Oh, 100%. If you are an international investor moving hundreds of millions of dollars across borders, you are terrified of uncertainty. A stable regulatory framework is arguably more important to you than the potential for aggressive price growth.
Because you need to know you won't lose it all.
Right. You need to know that property rights are ironclad. You need to know the judicial system will enforce contracts.
That makes total sense.
That regulatory transparency, combined with the UAE's diversified economy and massive fiscal reserves, is the ultimate signal of trust to global capital. That boring bureaucracy is the actual bedrock of the safe harbor. Without it, the cash simply wouldn't come.
So Dubai built a fortress of trust to attract billionaires. But what happens if you take that exact same blueprint for trust-clear property rights, strict regulations, institutional credibility, and apply it not to an oil-rich global hub, but to a small island economy?
That is the core question.
Because the source article takes all of this macro-level machinery and asks, how does this exact same engine power Jamaica?
Well, Jamaica obviously operates on a vastly different economic scale than the UAE. The source is very clear on this distinction. Jamaica's housing market is driven primarily by local demand.
Right, it's not the same buyer profile.
Exactly. It is not being shaped by massive cross-border flows of global capital from ultra-high net worth individuals looking for safe havens.
So what does this all mean? If you are sitting in Kingston and you aren't dealing with an influx of ultra-prime cash buyers from Eastern Europe, why does this blueprint matter to you?
It matters because while the scale and the players are entirely different, the foundational principle is identical. Property is the ultimate anchor.
Anchor is a good word for it.
Yeah. In a world marked by severe geopolitical uncertainty, rapid inflation, shifting capital flows, and increasingly climate risk land and housing represent stability when all other financial systems feel incredibly fragile.
And in Jamaica, that takes on a deeply human, micro-level urgency. We are talking about a sterile wealth allocation strategy to avoid capital gains taxes. The source emphasizes that homeownership in Jamaica is fundamentally about stability for families. It is the literal inheritance for future generations.
It's foundational.
It's a form of grassroots economic resilience. Let's think about the mechanics of an island economy for a second. When you are a small island nation, you import a lot of your goods.
Right.
If global supply chains freeze or shipping costs quadruple because of a conflict halfway across the world, massive inflation hits your local grocery store instantly. You are naturally exposed to global volatility.
Very exposed.
So having a tangible asset like a home, a piece of land that you own and control, is your personal shock absorber against that imported inflation.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the actionable takeaway for Jamaica becomes very clear. The island doesn't need to try and replicate a global financial hub for billionaires, but it absolutely must focus intensely on its own institutional credibility.
Same trust engine.
Yes, the exact same engine of trust that powers Dubai needs to be maintained and optimized in Kingston. Specifically, the source highlights three critical structural areas requiring continued attention:
Which are?
land administration, planning systems, and housing policy.
Well, let's break down why land administration is so critical because, again, it sounds like boring paperwork. But it's actually about economic mobility.
It's everything.
Imagine a local Jamaican family. They build a house, they put their life savings into it, but because the local land administration system is backlogged or the cadastral mapping is outdated, they can't get a clear, unquestionable title to their land.
And without that clear title, that asset is economically frozen.
Wow.
If that family wants to start a small business and needs capital, they can't go to a bank and use their home as collateral for a loan
Yeah.
because the bank needs to see a perfect legal title.
So the wealth is there, but they can't touch it.
Right. The wealth is physically there in the bricks and mortar, but it is financially trapped. The system failed to provide the trust mechanism.
But when the land administration is seamless, when the planning systems are transparent and fair, and when housing policy actively supports development, the exact opposite happens.
Exactly. That family can leverage their asset, they can build generational wealth.
It's the same principle as the billionaires.
Exactly. Just like the international investor dropping millions in the Middle East needs to trust the escrow system, a local family in Jamaica putting their life savings into a home needs to trust the land registry.
That is such a powerful connection.
When institutions are trusted, when development processes are entirely transparent, and when property rights are unquestionable, property markets attract confidence over time.
Regardless of who is buying.
Exactly. It doesn't matter if it's foreign capital seeking a safe harbor or local household savings seeking a foundation for the future. Good, boring governance allows the market to function effectively and provide that crucial layer of economic security for everyone involved.
So, to synthesize this entire journey for you, whether you are a billionaire intentionally parking liquid cash in a Dubai ultra-prime villa because you are terrified of an impending stock market crash, or you are a family diligently navigating planning systems in Jamaica to build a home that will protect your children against local economic shifts, property
Yeah,
represents something deeply universal.
it really does.
It is a place to live, yes, but it is fundamentally a foundation of security in an intensely uncertain world.
Seeing the gears turning behind the headlines helps you recognize the hidden architecture of the global economy. Real estate is never just about bricks, mortar, and square footage.
No, it's so much more.
It is just as much about human psychology, the mathematics of debt versus cash, the relentless pursuit of safe harbors, and the absolute vital importance of regulatory trust. A functioning property market is the physical manifestation of economic confidence.
It is that concrete bunker in the storm we pictured at the very beginning.
Exactly right.
We've seen today how institutional trust acts as an impenetrable shield for property markets, protecting wealth and stability during intense global crises. But it leaves you with a lingering thought, something for you to mull over as you watch the international news this week.
I'm curious.
We know trust builds the bunker, but if a country's institutional credibility, its rule of law, and its regulatory transparency were to suddenly erode from within, how quickly would all that seemingly indestructible physical concrete lose its value?
A fascinating and frankly vital question to consider when looking at any market.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Keep questioning the world around you, keep looking for those hidden structures beneath the headlines, and we will catch you next time.